Hello and welcome everyone. I'm your host today, Tyler Kern, and today we are taking a look at the State of the Union for FrontRow with their president, Jens Holstebro. Jens, thank you so much for joining me today.
And you too.
Absolutely. Well, Jens, it's clearly been a hectic year. It's been a crazy 2020. Schools were not in session for the latter half of the spring semester, and the fall semester is rapidly coming upon us. So how has FrontRow weathered the storm so far?
Yeah, it's been pretty hectic, no doubt, right? You know, obviously we were taken by surprise as the rest of the planet back in March and did experience a complete shutdown for a couple of months, and you know, standing on the sidelines, probably with you know, everybody, you know, operating a business, but especially in K-12, being pretty concerned about essentially what this would mean, short as well as long term. But I have to say that at this point, you know, we're kind of 180 degrees because the concern has kind of migrated into becoming more concerned about our ability to fulfill orders more so than having business at all, because it turns out that we have some solutions that are in tremendous demand by the schools right now. So, you know, a little bit of survivor's guilt, but at the end of the day, I think that we just feel so fortunate that we're able to stay relevant even during a pandemic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, how do you see federal safety guidelines for the upcoming academic school year impacting the classroom technology market? How do you see that all shaking out?
You know, it's still sort of a moving target, right, in terms of schools' interpretation of those and how they're going to go about, you know, trying to accommodate as much as they possibly can, right? So I think, as we'll see across the country, you know, that interpretation is going to drive the kind of technologies that the schools are going to be focusing on. It's a narrow spectrum that will only leave a few number of providers relevant right now, just because it's just so urgent for the schools to be able to reopen in whatever, you know, stage that they decide. That drives most of their decisions. So I think that will certainly shape a more narrow spectrum of providers in terms of the EdTech marketplace, no doubt.
So one of the interesting aspects of this is that different municipalities and different school districts and different states are all handling the pandemic differently and are all approaching the upcoming school year in a different manner with different regulations. How is that impacting what FrontRow is working on and the EdTech industry as a whole?
I think, again, you know, the fact that there's regional differences across the country, you know, during a pandemic and you know, not during a pandemic is sort of the way our marketplace works. That's not really that different from any day or year that we are in business. So I think the industry will do what it always does, which is you know, meet the customers where they want to be met in terms of, you know, their requirements, and then they will adapt to what you know, the district, the school, the municipality is looking for, and you know, that's just sort of like the nature of the game, really, right? That you know, it's like a marriage through thick and thin. You do what the counterpart is looking for when times are tough. So, you know, right now you're clearly seeing that companies like ours, who's been in the industry for, you know, 5 decades, can leverage the dialogue that we have with our, you know, longstanding customers to figure out quickly and very agile what's needed, and then accommodate that as fast as we can. I think that the bigger piece on regional differences is probably going to be more on, you know, reopening schedules. You know, what type or when do school years re-engage with the community, and how is going to be driving urgencies as well, right? So in Texas, you know, they will open schools differently than they will in Connecticut, for instance, and that will drive priorities and urgencies for sure on both sides of the fence.
Absolutely. Now, one of the interesting aspects of this upcoming school year is going to be whether or not students are in classrooms in mass, whether they're meeting in person or whether they're meeting virtually. It's certainly going to be interesting, and there's going to be probably a new normal that's been laid out by school districts just as far as where students are and how they're going to be learning. But I was wondering if you could share a success story about how FrontRow and other edtech companies maybe have risen to really meet this challenge to help students, to help teachers, to help educators. Do you have a particular example that you can really speak to that shows what FrontRow is capable of?
Absolutely, yeah. So, as you pointed out, right, there's a lot of districts that are working with this sort of hybrid model, where they're going to be able to facilitate having in-class learning, but in parallel also actually be able to communicate with students who, for various reasons, decides not to be in the classroom under the constraints of the pandemic, and that creates a technology need for the educator to be able to, on one hand, sort of service the kids in classroom, and provide, as normal as possible a learning environment, and then at the same time being able to take that message and transmit it, over a distance to kids learning from home. And the FrontRow technology, because we kind of, put an AV platform into the classroom that starts with a microphone around the teacher's neck, is a good starting point for that. So I would say the most relevant example on how we've been able to see that sort of optimal convergence is actually down in your home state, Texas. Dr. Martinez at Clint Unified out in El Paso was already very visionary in terms of the type of AV platform that he wanted in all their classrooms. And we were in the midst of deploying a very sophisticated AV platform for his classroom that included cameras and microphones and, audio amplification, a very wide spectrum of stuff that was obviously aimed at pre-pandemic requirements. And when this new normal came in, we quickly went back and talked to the district, and right now they're actually repurposing the product to be able to connect to tools like what we're using today, Zoom or Google Meet, so that they can have the AV infrastructure that we're putting in be the gateway for them to accommodate hybrid learning right now. And then later on, they can sort of, turn off that switch and go back to what the product was intended for initially.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of flexibility, I think, is crucial and is paramount during this time. So Jens, as we begin to wrap up today, I wanted to ask a question, just with the various environments for learning being perhaps different this fall, whether it's mixed, a hybrid approach, all online, that sort of thing. Do you picture this having an impact on the overall quality of education for students?
Of course, quality of education has a lot to do with whoever is the mediator of such. So, the teacher is going to always drive a very, very key role in terms of the quality being communicated. So now that you're adding technology between the teacher and the student, you're kind of adding a third variable that obviously will play an impact in that. So I think it's very important, because this is happening so urgent, that whatever technology that you're asking teachers to adapt very rapidly is simple to use and intuitive, right? And I think that that's one of the other reasons why we're seeing a tremendous strong momentum with our type of technology, just because, it's really not changing to a high degree the conduct of the educator. We're really just amplifying it. So technology adaptation and a low learning curve, I think, is going to be crucial for this not having an impact to the quality of education. On a more philosophical level, I think it's going to drive adaptation of new technologies, both on the teacher level as well as on the student level, right? The fact that we're using tools like this, and we know that they're being used now across the nation for learning as well, I think is going to be driving us forward a lot more rapidly than we were thinking 3 months ago. So that's an advantage in terms of just everybody's embracement of digital tools, which are needed even after the pandemic, no doubt.
Jens Holstebro, he is the president of FrontRow. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jens, and talking a little bit more about this interesting time for the EdTech market, what FrontRow is doing, and how you picture things moving forward. So Jens Holstebro, president of FrontRow, thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, thank you for letting me be here.
And everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back soon with more content, but until then, I've been your host today, Tyler Kern. Thanks for watching.